good way to start us off in a good way for our 2023 annual general meeting. I would like to invite Antoinette Ravel-Ouellette, our Stronger Together Canada program coordinator, to introduce Susie McPherson for the Indigenous blessing.
Thanks, Petra. And thank you everybody for coming today. And I have some tobacco that I'm virtually passing over to Susie McPherson, who, as Petra said, is our Stronger Together Canada Indigenous liaison. And welcome, Susie. And Susie is going to do an Indigenous blessing to start our day off in a good way. Susie?
Good morning, and I accept this tobacco to share some words and a prayer to start us off today. I'll start in the Cree language. Kisemantu, kinanaskamitananos kagisaga. Sawenaminan, gamino bimatsia. Wichihinan, kanuenaminan, anos wawahe, egamata tugisagaw. Wichihinan, kanuenaminan, kakanoninan, kachawasmesa. Squawak, nabesasak, squesasak, ego napewak. Minanan and anosoin, ego minomachihoan. I want to acknowledge and give thanks for the Indigenous nations that were and are here on these lands. I want to acknowledge and give thanks for, I bring greetings from southwestern Manitoba and the Indigenous nations that were and are here on these lands. I want to acknowledge the 600 plus nations that were here across Canada prior to European contact. Indigenous nations, unique and distinct societies with their own languages and systems of governance, who saw themselves as a part of creation and lived as such. They took care of themselves, each other, their communities, and the land. They knew the waters. They knew the patterns of weather, animals, and all that they needed to live off the land. So we look to the east, to the south, to the west, and to the north, and we acknowledge the Indigenous nations from each of those directions, and we give thanks for their ancestral story, their truth, and their wisdom. We now turn full circle back to the east, and we acknowledge all the nations that now live here on these lands, those who came as guests, visitors, refugees, newcomers, settlers, visitors. We acknowledge all that they have brought here to this place and this time. We think about how the story unfolded from the Indigenous worldview that was happening to the diverse worldview that is happening here now. We acknowledge each person here, the story, the memory, the journey that each one of us has been on, and how our story connects, and how very important it is for each of us to know our story and how it connects to that story that was happening here all those years ago. And so we want to give thanks for this time together, this opportunity, and all that we can do together to make this world a better place for everyone. That each is honored, and that we all participate, and that we all strive to a win-win situation at no one's expense. And so I say, Egwesani, Nananaskamon, Kakinonawakamaгаnak. Thank you. I am grateful. All my relations. Aybasan. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, Susie, for this beautiful blessing and for sharing your time with us this morning. Thank you from my heart. It's my turn as the outgoing chair to bring you greetings this morning. And I had planned a little bit of a retrospective of where we've come from. On the bottom right, you see a picture from our very first Mom Stop the Harm meeting in the fall 2016 in Summerland, where what we put together as ideas and goals at the time we called the Summerland Accord. You will see faces here you recognize who are still with us, like the 3 co-founders and incoming board chair, Maria Jurichis, Helen Jennings, one of the staff, and others who are still involved in the organization. On the left, you see a photo of our next meeting in Edmonton. You see we've grown. You see Tyler here, and our staff member, and Angela, former board chair and champion of our websites. But instead of my retrospective talk, you can find in our annual report on the website. If you go on the website, look at an annual reports tab, you can find it there. What I want to talk instead this morning is what is happening in this country, that much of what we have fought for naloxone being off prescription. We have fought for the 911 Good Samaritan law. We have fought for DCRIM. We have fought for safe supply. We have a smidgen of safe supply in this country. They're about estimated to be 5% of the people in BC who need it, who have access. There are a total of 1,500 people in all of Ontario. There are 30 left in Alberta. Yet safe supply is under attack, and it's under attack from opposition, from conservative politicians, with arguments that are, I have to choose my words carefully, that are not based on evidence. The arguments that they make bear no semblance of the findings that the research tells us. They tell us the streets are flooded with safe supply. The streets are flooded with hydromorphone, which they are not. If they were, not so many would be dying. Here in Alberta, 95% of all deaths are from the toxic street drugs. It's over 90 in BC as well, close to 90 in Ontario. The BC coroner concluded that people are not dying from safe supply. It is an outright, it's misinformation to the 9th degree that's being brought forward by these politicians. And now there's a motion before the House that is being voted on May 31st. We have Leslie McBain, our co-founder, and Charlene Marcan, our board secretary, going to Ottawa, together with Ottawa advocates, led by Angela Boss and Ruth Fox. Ruth Fox is an incoming director. For an event on June 1, but also to stand with opposition MPs and others who oppose this motion, this opposition motion to end all safe supply programs. So what we can do between today and next week, the 31st, not many days, Tyler, if you can pop that into the link, we'll be emailing that out to you as well. If you have any time to phone any conservative MP, of course, obviously yours if you have one, or in your area, and what we ask conservative MPs to do is to oppose, or rather to abstain from the vote, or not show up, or go to the bathroom, whatever they can do not to add their vote to it. There's probably strong party discipline and will not be easy, but We've put together a package for you with some findings on safe supply. One, it's the streets aren't flooded with it. There are no vending machines that can be accessed by teenagers. Those are biometric machines that can only be accessed by people who have that prescription. So we've put together information for you and linked some documents. So if you have time to phone a Conservative MP, please help us with that. Please also pay attention to our social media. There is a form where you can add the information, what you have learned from your MP. There is no time to email people. You can tweet at them. You can comment at Facebook, you can phone their office, and if they are not in, which they're likely not because the House is sitting next week, give a message, a detailed message to their staff, and include a bit of your own personal story. We fought for this so hard, and it's such a smidgen, and it is so frustrating because there is so little safe supply that saying it's not working is pointless. We haven't really tried it. We've never really tried safe supply for all who need it. And we know that more and more people are dying from the toxic supply. We have predictions here in Alberta that we will see record numbers again for the first months of 2023, which is also what BC has seen. So please, if you have a few minutes, or if you're on Twitter or if you're on Facebook, get this message out that safe supply means life. Safe supply is life-saving and life-affirming, and it's evidence-based, and it doesn't mean we give up on recovery or treatment. It means we have hope for that recovery and treatment to happen. So thank you so much, everybody. If there are questions, pop those in the chat, and Tyler will share them. Now I'm really excited to introduce to you, and on introduction, sorry, neglected to mention that earlier. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat to your fellow members here, say who you are, where you're from, maybe what brought you to Moms Stop the Harm, and if you would like, you can also include a land acknowledgement in your introduction, just in chat. And in chat, please also any comments or questions. But at this point, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Emily Beaudeschamps. She's one of our regional directors for Atlantic, and Emily is just the most amazing person, and she has a most amazing story to share about her relationship with her son. And every time I hear the story, I am moved and I am hopeful, and that's why we wanted Emily to speak this morning, because hers is a story of the power of mom's love and the power of perseverance and the hope there is. And I know that not for many of us, the outcome was not hopeful, but we want to focus on hope and give that hope to others. And like our Holding Hope groups, how the name says, we want to support people and families in a hopeful way, so they have better outcomes and people can find their own wellness, whatever that means for them. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and then you can see Emily, and Emily can share her own screen. And Tyler, you let me know if there are questions or anything, and questions for Emily.
Thank you, Petra, for that wonderful introduction. I'm a little overwhelmed by your kind words, so thank you for that. As Petra said, I'm the director for the Atlantic region for Moms Stop the Harm, and in my professional life, I've worked in healthcare my entire, feels like my whole life, but my whole adult life. I'm the administrative director of the laboratory medicine program in St. John here in New Brunswick, which is the home of the Wolastoqiyik peoples. I also want to give a shout out to Petra to say thank you so much for, kind of being my mentor throughout this my learning process. And some of you might recognize the color scheme and the layout of the slides because she's shared a lot of things with me for presentations, and I've built my own repertoire, but they definitely have Petra's touch on them. So thank you for that. And before I start, I just want to say that, I recognize that everybody's journey is different, and, I'm not here to say what's right or wrong. I'm just here to talk about my story and what I've done. And, I also, I'm really sorry for all of the collective grief that's in this virtual room, because I know a lot of you have not had this, hopeful outcomes like my son has had. And I just want to make sure that I acknowledge that. I recognize that it's a privilege for me that my son is still alive. And it's not something that I take credit for. So the same as I don't blame myself for, him having struggles in the first place. And I hope that you all afford yourselves the same kindness, because we're not to blame for the situation that a lot of people end up in. So I'll introduce you to my son, Albert. We named him Evan when he was born. And when he was about this, in the picture on the right, he's about 10 years old. And he decided he wanted to go by his first name, which is Albert, just because he felt like Evan was too common and he wasn't, he just isn't a common person, and that he's maintained that theme throughout his whole life. He struggled in school when he was in elementary school. They told us that he was going to fail grade 3, and because he would, couldn't pay attention, even though he was reading at a grade 8 level. And so we had some testing done on him. And again, I'm privileged that I had private healthcare, private Blue Cross coverage, because otherwise we wouldn't have had access to testing. So he was diagnosed with ADHD, and they tried enriching him through other programs. We decided not to medicate him at the time. And whether or not that would have made a difference in the course of his his youth, I don't know. But he did end up finding music as his that was his passion, and so that's kind of what he was drawn towards. And so we just enriched him every opportunity we had to try to build that love of music. He also loved to travel. So when he was in high school, I took him to India and to visit some family, and that's where he discovered that he really loves to travel, and he never wanted to stay still after that, and he still hasn't. He hasn't stayed still. And so this is a picture of him at his grade 8 graduation with his little sister. So when he turned 19, so high school was a struggle because he started using substances, and I didn't really know anything until he was caught shoplifting cough syrup. And then, it kind of made me, okay, what's going on here? Like, why? I was completely oblivious to, maybe not oblivious, but maybe more like my head in the sand, that he was struggling, and I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to help him, and I didn't know where to turn. And there was really, as we all know, there really is no help. And we had him seeing someone at mental health, but as soon as he found out that because he was over 16, that he didn't have to be there if he didn't want to, then he stopped all sessions. So he continued to struggle, and life was really hard, like having him living at home, and everything was chaotic and really unpredictable. And then when he turned 19, he decided to leave home, which is fine. He couldn't find work, and it was honestly, shamefully, almost a bit of a relief just to have a break from the chaos. And so he hitchhiked to Alberta, and he ended up in Medicine Hat for his first year. And that started about 5 years where he lived unhoused. And he lived in Medicine Hat for a while, Calgary. These pictures, the one on the right, he's in Calgary. The one on the left, the one on the left, he's in Calgary, and the one on the right, he's in Vancouver. And he just moved around and used drugs. And he discovered that crystal meth was was the substance that he liked the most. It made him feel the best. He overdosed on fentanyl 3 times. and his friends all carried naloxone, and I'm grateful that he was in Alberta at the time. And at the time, the street supply wasn't what it is today. And so when he used fentanyl, he knew he was using fentanyl. It was intentional. And they all had naloxone. They had available, it was available to them. Whereas in New Brunswick at that time, it wasn't available. When he came home, I had to get a prescription for it actually, and it cost me $70. So he, in 2016, he presented to the emergency room because he had back pain, and this was in Calgary. And they turned him away. They said that he was seeking drugs, and they didn't do any kind of investigations. They didn't collect any blood work. They didn't do an X-ray or any kind of MRI or anything like that. They said, no, you're just looking for drugs, go away. And he told me after that, and it stuck with me, and I say it every time I speak, so you've heard me say this line lots of times, I'm sure, anybody who's heard me before, but he said, it's foolish that they would even say that, because I can get way better drugs on the street than what they're going to give me in the emergency room. So why would they even think that? And I thought, wow, like that's such a different perspective, because I've worked in healthcare forever, and I bought into all of that. That kind of stigma, those ideas that somebody's coming to the emergency room because they're looking for painkillers, when the reality is they don't need to come to the emergency room for that. So if someone's coming in pain, and I talk to healthcare workers all the time, if someone's coming in pain, maybe we should try treating their pain, or try investigating their pain, rather than just dismissing them. And so he went back to the emergency room the second time because the back pain was getting worse. And again, he was turned away. They tried to collect blood that time, but because he was somebody who injected drugs, and because of that, he was really sensitive about his veins, and about them not getting wrecked, and still being able to use them. And the people that were trying to collect his blood weren't sensitive to that, and so they ended up having a little bit of a conflict, and so again, no blood was collected. There was no X-ray, there was no investigation whatsoever. And so then the third time he went to the hospital, it was in an ambulance, because his legs gave out and he was paralyzed from the waist down. And so he had an abscess growing on his spine. It was Staph aureus, and he ended up having surgery to remove it. He had 43 staples running down his back. He was on IV antibiotics, and they didn't know if he was going to walk again. And so after this was in like the end of October, and after of 2016, and after that, he he had to start the long process of rehabilitation, and it was a long process. It took him months to learn how to walk again. He so I went to visit him at that time, and I didn't know what to do. I just know that when I had visited him before, I would sit with him on the street wherever he was, and I would start to just to try to connect with him, because my thought was always, I need to keep a connection open, and I need to make sure that he that I preserve that relationship, because it's so hard, as we all know from our loved ones, it's so hard to keep that relationship alive and keep that connection going, but it's so important. And so that's kind of what I focused on. And I remember distinctly one time visiting him and just asking him, why are you here? What do you love about it? Just tell me. And it was so hard to hear, but it was the most important thing, I think, that I did for us. Excuse me. So when he had the surgery, the only thing I could think of was, I need him to come home, because I can't help him from I'm in New Brunswick, and he's in Alberta, and I can't help him from here. And so so I brought him home for Christmas, and I had to choose my words carefully in order to convince him to come. And I was so grateful that I have a doctor here that I work with who's an infectious disease specialist, and he's so kind and so, you know, caring. And he took him as a patient, and he was heavily addicted to hydromorphone post-surgery. And even after, you know, when it should have been the time for him to really, you know, start weaning off the hydromorphone, he wasn't ready to do that. And so his doctor said, okay, I get it. It's not your biggest concern right now, so let's keep you on something. And so he prescribed him Cadian, which we all know is an effective, safe supply. And that prevented the withdrawal. So he had 1 dose every morning that I picked up every day at the pharmacy, and he stayed on that for months. And then it came time to, what I did when I brought him home, I promised him that he wouldn't be stuck. I said, when you're ready to go back, whatever you're leading, and so whatever you need is what we're going to do. So in, like, it was about February, he said, I'm ready to go back. And I was thinking in my head, you're not ready. Like, you're not ready. He was walking with a cane, you know, and he said he wanted to go to Hamilton and visit his friends and go back to the street, because that's where he felt the most welcome and the most loved and the most accepted. And so I was out shoveling my back deck, and I was just shoveling the snow off, and I thought, what am I going to do? He's not ready to go. How am I going to, like, what do I do? What do I do? And the words that came in my head were, you can't love him if you think you can change him. And, you know, tough love for me never felt like love. It felt like conditional love. And so I made the decision then, he's an adult. I have to allow him to make his own decisions and to make choices about his life, whether I agree with them or not. And so I upgraded my vehicle to a 7-passenger vehicle, and I loaded up the whole family, and we drove to Ontario for March break. And this was one of the hardest days that I ever had with him, because it's the day we said goodbye. And he, you know, he made it. You know, he's okay. But I dropped him off. He was walking with a cane, and I watched him walk away. And I thought, you know, I didn't know if I was ever going to see him again. And he went to find some crystal meth, and he injected, and he started having pain in his legs again, and he started having pain in his fingers. And he thought, oh my gosh, if I lose my arms, he thought, you know, I can lose my legs, but if I lose my arms, I can't play music. And so he went to the emergency room. They weren't going to treat him. They didn't believe anything he was telling them. So he called me, and I got on the phone with them, and they admitted him. And while he was in the hospital, he said, okay, I'm done. I have to be done. And so he detoxed from the Cadian in the hospital, and he never used another needle after that. Now, one thing that I've learned is that recovery isn't linear. You know, it's not, and it doesn't have to be abstinence, and it has to be on someone's own terms, because he still used alcohol. He still used other substances, which he gradually has given up a lot of them over time. And he now, you know, he uses a few substances, but none of them are causing the same kind of chaos that these substances cause for him. So he's now housed. He has his driver's license. He has a bank account. He's doing all of the things that you know, I never thought that I would see him do. And so just a few of the things that I've learned through this process is that supporting someone that you love doesn't mean you're fixing them, because a lot of times we think as moms that we want our kids to be the way that we see them as being. You know, we want them to be something that we want, and we have to make sure that we're not putting our own expectations on them. And so it's not our job to fix them. It's our job to support them. Picking your battles. So I have 2 teenagers here at home now, and I treat them very differently. We don't fight about things that don't matter. Understanding the why. So asking him, you know, why do you like to use? That was so important for me, and it changed our relationship. Learn mental health first aid. You know, it's so difficult in those situations, and we, a lot of times as parents, we're not equipped to deal with when our kids are in crisis, and it's really, really important. And then this is the best advice I ever heard. I listened to a TED Talk, and it was a mom who she lost her son to suicide. And she said if she could have had any advice that would have helped her, it was ask your kid how they're doing, and then shut up and listen. And, you know, we have a tendency to try to correct or to redirect. And this for me has been, it's been invaluable as far as, you know, the way that I parent my teenagers now. And then remember why you love them. Don't see them as how they are today, but see them as the person that you love, and remember who they were, you know, when in the good times. And then, of course, be kind to yourself and do things that matter to you, because that's what self-care is, you know, and do things that fill you up. Make sure you protect your other family relationships. A lot of times it affects, you know, I ended up getting divorced because we were so focused on, you know, trying to stabilize the chaos, that we neglected our relationship. And you know, so that's really, really important. And find a support group. I didn't have anyone to talk to, and that's why I am now a facilitator for Holding Hope, because I just want to provide that space for people to feel safe to talk. Albert now is living in, well, at this moment, he's in Tadoussac in Quebec. He moved to the Yukon in 2018, and that's when he started, you know, working and paying rent, because he said, oh, I can't live in the Yukon and live unhoused. So, and he loved it there. And so then he moved to Quebec last summer. And so he's, you know, really, he's playing music. He has a girlfriend. They're living, you know, a really fulfilling existence. I think they're really happy. And he's wearing, you can't really see it in the picture, but he's wearing the t-shirt that I got at the last year's AGM in Vancouver that says Safe Supply, we're dying for it. And then he has a Mom Stop the Harm bumper sticker on the back of his 2004 Toyota Camry. And that's my story. So thank you very much, everyone, for asking me to be here today and allowing me to share in this space.
Wow, thank you, Emily. What a story, and so beautifully told, and I love those lessons that you share, and also you know, that you're facilitating a Holding Hope group now, and so much is about the support. So many of us struggled without having that support from anyone who would understand what we are going through, without the stigma and the shame that we so often face. So got a couple of minutes if anybody has any questions for Emily. There have been lots of wonderful comments in the chat that I've seen coming through. Tyler, did you see any questions? By the way, Emily is going to be one of our speakers. There's a conference in Ottawa in the fall. It's called Stimulus. I'll talk about that in a moment. And Emily is going to be one of our presenters at Stimulus. So, well, back to the business of things. We have a bit of housekeeping from Tyler, and something we're doing differently this year. Because of our application for charity last year, those who were at last year's AGM, you remember that we changed our bylaws, and those bylaws require us to have voting members with annual renewable voting membership. So Tyler will explain to us how voting members can vote this year.
All right. Well, welcome everyone today. It is so awesome to see so many of us getting together, and all the love and the support happening in the chat window is just, oh, just warms my heart so much. But yeah, so getting down to business. So our voting form, so as you can see, there's a sample of it that Petra has up on the screen. And so voting members have all been sent the link to that Google form. And one thing that you are going to have, definitely please insert your email and of course then answer the questions. And then we're going to do one question at a time as the vote is called, and then hit submit. And then it will then come to me as a response to that question. And then I can see if that vote or that motion has then been passed or has not been passed. Yeah, so then and then of course when it all comes to the end of it, only the final results, so only the tally of the votes will then be shared with our board secretary Charlene, not your email addresses. Your email addresses will be kept confidential in our database, and then that way we just have the stats and such for our, the formality of paperwork.
Thank you for that, Tyler. And one little snag has just occurred to me, because the mandatory questions, you can actually only submit that once. So what we do, we have people tally the votes and then we announce the votes after they've all been cast. I've been spending weeks trying to think through this process and how to make it happen. But just wondering, are there any questions about the voting process or voting form? Leslie had a question earlier, in case you didn't catch that. When it comes to our candidates, we will be voting for a slate of candidates. Are there other questions about the voting form? I hope everybody has theirs. If not, pop in the message, but you have to be a voting member to have the form. So not being any questions, I'll move on.
Just one moment, Petra. Actually, there is for our note of clarification. So the form will stay open until the end of the meeting. So if you have to pop out early, just know that that's going to be your time to, like, when the meeting is done, then everything will be closed. Lorna has raised her hand for a question.
Oh, hi. Good morning, everybody. I found the financial statements on the website. I didn't receive an email, and that might have been me, but I asked a couple of others who did not receive the email, but the financial statements are on the website. So if we're voting on them, it'd be important for people to take a look at them.
Yeah.
They were also included in.
They were in the annual report, Lorna. Everybody received an email from the annual report. We should have probably highlighted that in the email. What is doing this?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had, if you received the annual report, the financial statements were included there. Sorry for not highlighting that inclusion.
Okay, thanks.
And there are a couple of more people raised their hands, Tyler. It's easier actually if you pop your question in the chat. But let's take these two participants now, Tyler, who's raised their hands. Just going to stop sharing so I can see. Lorna is done. Do you have a legacy hand, I assume? I'm just going to look at the chat. Yeah, if you're sending me direct messages, I'm not going to see them. You have to send them to Tyler because I'm focused on the PowerPoint. You have to pay your membership to be a voting member. You have to change on a better impact. We had lots and lots of emails on that and lots of reminders with really detailed instructions. So if you're not a voting member right now, then sign up for next year. And there had also been at one point a question if staff can be voting members, and staff cannot be voting members because you all here, you're the boss of the board. The voting members are the ones who elect the board, and the voting members can be on the board. The board supervises the most senior employee who supervises the rest of the employees. So if employees could be voting members and being on the board, they kind of be supervising themselves. That from a governance perspective is not what is recommended for good governance. So
There's a question that has come forward just asking, can the co-founders of Mom Stop the Harm ever become board members again?
Yes, they can if they want to. And that is a big question, the if they want to. After 1 year, like anybody, any board member, according to our bylaws, you can serve for 2 years. You can serve for another 2 years, and that's 2 years starting from last year. And then after 1 year, you can stand for election again. So Leslie could have stood for election this year, but she didn't. Lorna could have stood for election. So yeah, good question. Founders are just like ordinary board members or ordinary volunteers, and it's definitely a point of transition not to have a co-founder on the board anymore. But Marie, our incoming board chair, is really like a co-founder because she was at that first meeting. She was on our first board, so she's making sure that we kind of carry over and transition into our new board. So, okay. Sharing my screen. And why is my screen? Oh, yeah. So I said the annual reports on the website, that includes the financial statements, and that always stay there. You can always refer back to that. This year with the annual report, we decided to save money, not go to a graphic designer. So thank you very much to Tyler, who put it together, and to Doreen Laughlin, our Alberta board member, who chased down her fellow board members with all their reports, and Angela Wells, who contributed a lot to the content and photos, and I did some work on it as well. So it's kind of a team project. Yeah, maybe we can engage a graphic designer again in the future. So now moving on to the formal part of our meeting, and you've all received the agenda. The agenda is also on the website, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2023 agenda as presented. And if you second, please raise your hand, and Tyler will say who seconded.
I'm also going to, I see there's a couple of people that haven't found their email for the voting form, so I'm just going to send it out again. So if you just want to please just make note so you can add it to your form after, but just so that we're aware.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So who seconded?
I have Tracy and Lori Hadfield.
Okay, so so seconded, let's say by Tracy. You said Tracy first. Thank you for that, Lori. Are there any questions about the agenda? Any discussion items? Please in the chat. I'll see the chat when it's coming through. More so than raised hands. Yeah. If not, this will be your first vote doing the voting form, and you get to choose between yes, no, or abstain in your voting form. And I hope it works out, but don't hit, well, you can't hit submit until we are done voting, and then we will announce all the results. Our next motion is to correct an error from last year. Last year, we hit a snag with the scheduling time and started the AGM late, but had to finish on time. So I was kind of getting flustered as I was rushing through, and I made a mistake. When we voted on our slate of candidates, there was actually not a motion to vote on the slate of candidates. So I'd like to correct that now and make a motion to accept the results of the 2022 AGM vote electing board members despite missing the motion from the members in attendance. And you see who was elected last year here on the list. And of those who were elected last year, everybody but Michelle and Rose are still on the board. So if somebody could second that motion, please, by raising their hand.
I'll second the motion. It's Angie. Oh,
Thanks, Angie. No, that's good. Speaking up's good too. Actually, speaking up's maybe even better. Yeah, for I can hear that. Okay, thank you. Are there questions on that motion? And once again, my apology. That was my error. Trying to fit us into the allotted time. If there are no questions, please go ahead and vote on the motion to accept the results of the 2022 AGM vote electing board members despite missing the motion from the members in attendance. And thank you, Charlene, our board secretary, who keeps me on the straight and narrow, for helping with the wording of this motion. Having completed that vote, the next vote will be the approval of the 2022 AGM minutes. And once again, thank you to Charlene for putting those together for us. The motion before us is to approve the 2022 AGM minutes as presented. Could somebody speak out? I second by speaking out. Changing my instructions.
I approve them. It's Lori.
Thank you, Lori, and hi, Lori in Lethbridge.
Hi, Petra.
Any questions on the minutes? There not being any questions, please vote once again using our voting form. The next item is a presentation and then vote of our unaudited financial statements. There are 2 slides here, and unfortunately, our treasurer, Annie Story, had a family emergency to attend to, but thankfully Tracy Letts has kindly agreed to speak to the financial statements. So over to you, Tracy, and let me know when you want me to go to that second slide.
Oh, okay. You can actually do the next slide because it shows both, doesn't it? There we go. Okay, so like I said, Petra said, Annie's not available to be here today. One big change over last year is that we have gone to a 15-month year just so that we could bring our year in line with a lot of our funders. So it makes our reporting on our end easier. So if you notice any discrepancies, year over year in these, it's because, 2021 to 2022 is actually covers from January 1st of 2021 or 22 to March 31st of 2023. And taking a look at these, the majority of our funding comes from grants that we receive from different governing bodies, whether it's the SUOP through Health Canada or the CAI through the government of BC. And a lot of that funding is earmarked, as you'll notice in our expenses, to go to programming. So that's increased a bit over the last term. And we've also had a new grant that came in through Interior Health that is going towards youth programming. But all in all, it's pretty much the same. But one thing that's really noticeable here is over the past 15 months, we've received our donations, our actual donation revenue has remained about the same as it was from the prior year, even though we have an extra 3 months. So looking forward, with something we're really going to have to do is increase our fundraising capabilities, because that's our discretionary spending that's outside of what the grants are, which are very specific. And if you just look at the bottom of the expense statement, we've got the project expenditure. So basically it tells you how much of the funds that have come in through grants that are going to be going out by the end of this year. And that's pretty much about it, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Oh, you wanted to add something to it?
No, it's just looking at our net assets at the bottom. It's just not on the sheet, so that's fine. No, we're good.
Yeah. So, yeah, as Tracy said, most of the income for our programming income comes through government funding. We were fortunate to get 1 more year of Health Canada funding, but this is the last year. Unless there is a new Health Canada grant that we can apply for, we have to kind of find other sources of funding. So if there's anybody here who has an interest or skills and experience in fundraising, please reach out. You can email info and Tyler will pass it on to the board chair or whichever board member will be chairing our fundraising committee. So, are there any questions on the financial statements?
There was one I saw come in, and that was regarding the membership fees. Let me reread that one.
It's asking if voting members had to pay a fee. Where does the revenue from those fees show up in the revenue statement?
It's under the miscellaneous income.
Yeah, those, I mean, we charge $10, and how many voting members do we have right now, Tyler?
95.
Yeah. So it doesn't even cover the cost of our membership database at this point. We really it's more to comply with our bylaws than as a revenue generator. Of course, if anybody is able and would like to contribute more with their membership fees, that would be lovely. And likewise, anybody who is unable to pay membership fees can ask for the membership fees to be waived. There's no means test of any sorts. You just have to click a box that you'd like the membership fees to be waived, as we want to give everybody the ability to be a voting member of Mom Stop the Harm, and not make it a financial burden for anybody.
Petra, it's Charlene. I see there's a few questions coming up. It's just a point of order. We need to put a motion on and second it to accept, and then we can
go to the
question.
Discussion. Okay, so I would like to put forward the motion to approve the 2022-23 unaudited financial statements as presented. And I'll add a point to that once it's seconded. Who would like to second this motion?
I will.
Thank you, Leslie. Unaudited means we pay a financial auditor to go through all of our books, and we audited the 2021 financial statements, and the auditors came back with a good report. They fully accepted the statements. They had no concerns and just a few minor recommendations. And once again, these financial statements will be audited, and then we can report on that next year. So, and other questions, who would like to address the questions? Tracy or Charlene?
Do we not have to do the vote?
No, we do the questions and then we vote.
Okay, I can address the one question. So, yeah, and I see Tyler has addressed that. Being that these are the financials going to the auditor, things actually get grouped together in a different way than they would if just presented. So you would have more line items, particularly during your assets or revenue coming in. Same with your expenses. They actually, on our working copies of financials, do have very specific line items for things, but the ones that are going to the auditors, they do get grouped. So that's why you're not seeing it on here. But like Tyler said, that's something we could look at in the future. Yeah. And regarding the charitable status, well, that's been in the works for about 2 years now. Sounds like that the application has been submitted to Revenue Canada or to the CRA. And as of our last update, we were still at least 6 months away on getting approval on that. So it's a very slow process. I don't think they have, and even just with the previous strike that just happened, just puts everything back. So we're still probably 6+ months away from getting a definitive answer.
It was a lot of work putting these together. A lot of work went into that. I spent a lot of time with the lawyer prior to change of position. Jennifer Howard spent a lot of time on that application. And we finally put everything together in March. And at that point, CRA predicted minimum 6 months, but that was before they were on strike. So yeah, Tracy is correct. It's minimally 7 to 8 months from March. So hopefully by the end of this year.
When we did Boots one, it was 11 months.
11 months. Wow. Yeah. Thanks for that, Angela. Angela, you coming up, Angela. I'm getting confused. So are there other questions, Tracy?
All right, there's one here that's in regards to the staff salaries. This isn't a line item that's on here because the staff salaries are actually percentages that are put into individual grants. So it's spread across the revenue streams. Like I said, these are the financials that are going to the auditors. They're not the individual line items, but that's something we could, look at putting out in the future.
Yeah. So, and what I mean, right now, everybody is on contract, and what we pay for individual contract would also be advertised when positions are advertised. So it's yeah, I would say we are competitive but not overly generous is what I would describe our pay as. Seeing there not being any further questions, please vote on the motion to approve the 2022-23 unaudited financial statements as presented using your voting form. And thank you for standing in for Annie. You might make a future treasurer, Tracy, if you don't watch out. Related to our financial statements, as we discussed, we have an auditor. We use Baker Tilly WM LLP, and they're a large firm out of Vancouver. They're not cheap. Auditing is incredibly expensive. Costs us about $20,000, but the audits are paid proportionally out of each grant to the percentage. Like if your grant is 30% of our overall budget, then your grant pays 30% of the audit cost. So that's kind of how we break that out. So I would like to make a motion to appoint Auditor Baker Tilly WM LLP for the 2023 financial audit, which will be this 15 months financial audit that Tracy has explained. If somebody would want to second that, please.
I can second that.
Thank you, Ruth. Ruth Fox from Ottawa. Any questions about the auditor or the auditing process? It's thorough. And it's also good for us to have when we apply for any kind of charitable grants or things otherwise, to have those audited financial statements. Tyler, any questions?
Troy Lana?
Yeah.
My question would be, sometimes the auditor will make recommendations for the organization. Has he made some recommendations, or does he speak to any of that?
There wasn't anything major. Like there were no significant recommendations that I can recall from the last audit.
Okay.
Yeah, they were happy with our books, actually. Once they figured out kind of, how our, we've also gone to a different bookkeeper, and we now have a bookkeeper that is very experienced in working with not-for-profits, and she has made some changes how our financial statements are presented and such, and that will further ease the job of the auditor. Yeah, good question, Trelana. Thank you. Any other questions?
There is a comment from one of our members stating that that's a very expensive audit. This may have been done already, but it might be worth looking for an auditor that offers a nonprofit discount or a pro bono service.
We contacted several firms. We took a long time picking the auditor, and because of the size, it took them a long time. It took them many hours because of the different grants and everything. It would be really hard to get somebody to do that pro bono, because they'd be giving up a week of their own income to do this. And we looked around, and Annie, our treasurer, she is an accountant, and this is who she recommended. Then actually their fees, it's a lot of money, but their fees were lower than some other quotes we had. So So I understand it's a huge expense, and it hurts me every time that comes through. But in order like for CRA and to have the government grants which fund our programs, we have to do these financial audits. Any other questions or comments, Tyler?
No, just thank yous for clarifying, and that others would agree with that initial statement that you just clarified on.
Yeah, okay, great. There not being any more questions, can we vote on the motion, please? Motion to appoint Auditor Baker Tilly, WM LLP, for the 2023 financial audit. And please use your voting form. We're almost done voting. And I'm retiring. And is Marie here? Are you going to say something about that, Marie? Yeah, on the agenda.
Yep. Hold on. I am literally sitting in a park in Quebec City. I'm grateful to be given the opportunity to sit in a park in Quebec City and say some very nice words about dear Petra. Now, if you bear with me 1 second, I go back to my words of preparation. You know, what a ride this has been, Petra, as you well know. You know, the ups and the downs and everything that we've had to go through. I am terrified to take over the shoes that I so gratefully and happily let all of you, Leslie, you, Lorna, manage all these years. So at this point, we've got some wonderful people on the board who I'm going to lean heavily on. But really, what can I say about Petra? You know, I have to say, most certainly, I'm honored to be given the esteemed opportunity to say some final words as you exit the board. First off, as I said, I'm terrified. I've been looking at the loads of files you've created, the policies, the documents, the charitable status application, grant applications, and so on and so on and so on. The shoes, you know, somebody says the shoes are too hard to fill. No, they won't be able to be filled. These two shoes are just too big for me. So as I said, I'll tell you all now that I'm okay with a little bit of failure. You need to accept it too, because we've got somebody, all sorts of amazing women moving on to other roles in this organization. So seriously though, we do have an amazing group, and collectively we hope to do you proud, Petra. And I hope that you take away with you a great sense of accomplishment. And with that, channel your endless energy into Alberta and national advocacy. And you know, all this started from a small light, and that light came from the souls of our children. And in your case, Petra, it's been Danny handing out the assignments, knowing full well that with you as his mother, he simply needed to sit back and watch. So to that end, thank you for your tenacity, for your guidance, for your leadership. Now go out there and save lives. It's what you do best. You're not done yet. And as I said, you don't get to necessarily decide you're out. We might have a little bit of something to say about that. So love you, my friend. And I'm sad to see this part of your journey close, but so happy you're getting back on that advocacy beat, because you really can be a pain in the butt sometimes. Thanks so much.
Thank you for that, Marie. Thank you. It is a momentous moment, and there are mixed feelings, but I have full confidence. I have full confidence in this organization, in this board, in your leadership, and in everybody here who's doing the work, because it's really the work that we are doing collectively. This has never been done by one person. It's all, or by a group of co-founders, or by a board. It's always been the work of all of us collectively together. And yeah,
Petra,
and I left you good instructions, I think.
Yes, no, so many instructions. And Petra, if I can add too, when I say pain in the butt, you bite and you don't let go. And that's what we need on the front doors of every person out there in Ottawa, in Alberta. We need to scare them in Alberta so they get scared in Saskatchewan. And you are the perfect person for that job, just to clarify.
Thank you. Well, let's see if we can scare them Monday. I'm not that, yeah, Let's see, a bated breath. But what I'd like to do now is, and I asked you to raise hands, but what I will actually do is I see all the names and then I stop sharing and then you raise your hand so people can see you actually. So our incoming board executive is going to be Marie Argyritis from Saskatchewan. A vice chair will be appointed by the new board. Charlene Vacan is thankfully staying on as secretary, and I so thank Charlene to always make sure that I follow procedure. Annie Story has been an amazing treasurer. Members at large, we have Willie McCorson in Saskatchewan, Arlene Kolb in Manitoba, Missy McLean in Ontario, Emily Beauchamp in Atlantic. We have Jeremy Callaghan, BC, Tracy Letts in BC, Doreen Laughlin, Alberta, and Tamara Talia in Manitoba. So I'm going to stop sharing, and you can all, those of you here can raise your hands. Not all board members could attend today. If you're a board member, raise your hands so people can see that you're there. Yeah. So, and Willie is doing the hand raising. She's doing the analog version of the hand raising. So thank you so much to all of you. And there are plans afoot to do more again on advocacy calls and such, and hopefully you'll be having more of a chance to get to know the board members from across the country there. So next we are moving on to our board candidates. Yes, I'm sharing my screen. I know that. I'm so excited for this year's slate of board candidates. There are some real powerhouses of harm reduction, people with administration background, people that bring the medical profession forward, people that bring, most importantly, lived experience in. Just an amazing powerhouse of candidates. We have Corey Ranger from BC. We have Angie Staines. Angie is is going to fill my shoes in Alberta. We have Janice Gillum from Manitoba, Dorothy Backer from Ontario. We have Ruth Fox in Ontario, and Katie Appam. Oh, I put you in Ontario, sorry. Katie is Atlantic as well. So I'm going to stop sharing. And then you can raise your hands, the board candidates. So we have Ruth, and we have Dorothy, and we have Corey. Great. And Angie, and oh, Catherine, do you have a question, Catherine? Just, yeah. Okay, and we have Janice. Wonderful. The profiles of these incredible people are on our website. They're doing some amazing work across the country already. Some of them are thrown right into leadership activities. Some are already leaders in advocacy. And I'm so thankful to these candidates. Does anybody have any specific questions right now of the candidates you'd like to ask? This is your chance. Okay.
Actually, I'm sorry, Petra, I have a general question, and it doesn't really require an answer, but I'm very hopeful and confident that all incoming board members have read all of our whole entire website, and that they agree fully with our direction, our mission, our mandate, and our bylaws and everything that's in there. It is of critical importance that everybody is on board in every way. But if there can be, I'm not saying there can't be changes, there can't be input, there can't be some changes, but I just hope that everybody has taken the time to do that. Thanks.
an important point, Leslie. I don't expect people to read the entire website because we have oodles and oodles of pages where we had blogs, but our mission, vision, values, and our goals is what Leslie is referring to. And I'm expecting better of you. I'm expecting you to revise and refresh them. For example, where it says that we have families affected by substance use related harms, I always want to say substance use policy related harms, because it's the policies. I always say the substances are innocent. The drugs are innocent. It's the policies that cause the harm. So I think our wonderful board candidates will do better than just being familiar. And it's very, very important. Sometimes we have members who join us and they're not 100% on board to where we are going on issues like safe supply and decrim. And that is totally okay. As you grow and learn, or you come to us for support, we will never turn anybody away who needs support. But when you are out there as a board member representing the organization, you know that safe supply is what we need to save lives, and that we need decrim to reduce and to reduce the stigma of substance use, and which is another life-saving measure. But the key thing right now is safe supply. People are dying at record numbers in BC, in Alberta, we see that, and in Ontario and other regions in record numbers from the toxic drugs. So that's what our advocacy is focused on. But these board members, a lot of what you do on the board is actually not that exciting stuff. You know, you deal with policies and procedures and with budgets and committees and terms of reference and all these things that will be before them. Would any one of you want to add a word here? The candidates.
I will.
Sure, Angie, you go.
I'm just really excited for the addition of this new group, Corey, Ruth, everybody. I think we have people who really understand the issues on the ground street level. And I think we can build and adjust things as we need. And the existing board, I'm just really excited about it. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have you there.
Yeah.
Angie and I, we're both in Edmonton. We work together really closely. We talk daily.
Can I just take the time to say thank you to Petra and the whole group, Leslie and Lorna. You all have mentored me, and I am who I am today because I watched you powerhouses. So thank you very much to all of you. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Angie. All right. No other board candidates wishing to speak at this point. They will have lots to say in the future. We'll move on to the election of our slate of candidates. And we have a slate of candidates. People apply, we go through, we're looking for representatives in each region. We are never overrun with candidates because of people realizing it's a huge job, but also we are really an army of wounded warriors. So much of our members carry so much pain and grief with them that it's limited what they can give. And then there are some people who rather lead a healing heart or holding hope group. You know, everybody or somebody who rather just organize, I shouldn't say just, somebody who organizes an amazing overdose awareness day, as so many of you do. Everybody has a role. And, you know, not everyone wants this kind of role. I'm thankful that those who are standing for election do. So we have Corey Ranger, Angie Staines, Janice Gillum, Dorothy Bacher, Ruth Fox, and Katie Upham. And a motion to approve the 2023 slate of board candidates as presented. Could somebody second that motion, please?
Sylvie.
Just in a
I
meeting,
will.
so I can't.
Sylvie?
Froilana.
Yes, I second.
Oh yeah, thank you, Sylvie, in Montreal. Yeah, Lovely to see you this morning. Are there any questions in addition to what we chatted about earlier? Tyler, any comments or questions coming through?
Not in regards to the slated candidates, no.
Okay, then this will be your last vote using the voting form. And after that vote is done, Tyler, could you go through all the votes and tell us the results? As people are voting, you could give the results of the earlier votes already. You know, on the form, if you sort alphabetically for each column, you'll have an easier time seeing yeses, noes, and abstained.
Yeah, just had to move over. I had just multiple screens open, so just had to move it over so I could read it all. So in regards to our motion to approve the 2023 agenda as presented, it was passed with 1 abstinence.
How many voted yes?
Oops, sorry, let me get to that other part here. Everyone that voted other than 1 abstained and 4 did not vote. They left that blank. Sorry. And then in regards to our motion to...
But do you have a number, Tyler? How many voted yes?
If you can give me a moment, because they're still coming in. Yeah, if you can give me a moment on that, then I can give you total number. I can give you total numbers.
Maybe we'll come back to that in a moment. Then I'll go on the agenda and give you a chance, if that is okay with everybody.
Yeah, Petra, I think we should have that sort of as the last item, because we did say we would leave the voting open till the end of the meeting. So.
Okay, good point, Charlene. Thank you. Yeah, so we are on to some news and updates as to what this exciting organization is doing. And first, we go to Marie again, who will give us an update on our strategic plan. Then I'll update on some actions and events. Tyler will update on Stronger Together programs. And Antoinette will give us some highlights of webinars and conferences. So Marie, over to you.
Hey, everybody. I'm just going to move into a spot that is not standing in the middle of Touristville. I am. I'm in a family thing. I'm just going to move over here. So what I'm here to tell you about is how our strategic planning went. It was actually really great, I thought. One man's opinion, but I hadn't heard otherwise from anybody else. Holly McClellan from, what's the name of her organization?
Hummingbird, I think. Hummingbird. Yeah.
Okay. And she did a really great job of engaging us all and pulling us together. So I was pretty happy about that. So I'm just going to give you some pretty quick highlights of what we did and how she pulled it together. You know, we have grown so much over the last few years. You know, we only imagined that we would be where we are right now. And through a lot of tenacity, a lot of hard work, and a lot of collective efforts from volunteers, we've managed to get to the place where we're kind of starting to transition from this grassroots organization into an organization that really has to manage ourselves quite effectively from a business perspective. There's a lot more optics on us from that point of view. We're trying to get our charitable status. There's things that we need to do. So I'm going to just go from the 4 kind of key areas that we highlighted as opportunities, not as opportunities, but areas of growth and growth opportunity. One of them is support. Where we say we support grieving families and those who struggle with substance use, so they understand the options and opportunities, which results in a sense of belonging. And so what we talked about is the growth in healing hearts and holding hope and maintaining strong and collaborative leadership teams that be able to plan for and evaluate for innovative efforts going forward. And, you know, when we talked about the money that comes in from different grants, a lot of that is very targeted money that the grant funder says, listen, we want to support families and grieving families and bring in that. So it is a growth opportunity that generally does have some funding in it, and it's going well, but we need more facilitators. So if you're interested, contact Tyla. Secondly is community outreach. And we talked about we will build relationships with key stakeholders and provide resources aimed at reducing the stigma and discrimination experienced by people who use substances and their families. You know, so maintaining strong interpersonal communications, maintaining clear and comprehensive information about programs, provide access to research, training, and resources, and maintain records on MSTH's key relationships with people, organizations, identify gaps, and seek regular feedback. So this is a really big area of growth for us in the next year or so, where we've got to get really detailed. We've got policies in place and we need to expand on those policies to be able to get higher level details so that as our organization grows across the country, we're not having to go back to one or two people and say, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? We have the documentation, the policies in place, should be at somebody's fingertips, and we should have a full-time executive director at that point to be able to help handle those inquiries with a simple send. So next after that, of course, is advocacy. What we do best and why most of us want to be here. So we use our voices to advocate and influence policymakers to work towards and revise an equitable, effective, evidence-based national drug strategy that is focused on decriminalization and access to legally regulated supply of substances. So safe, AKA safe supply, as Petra highlighted, a big deal right now in Canada. You know, so much of what we do is political. As much as we don't want it to be, it is. Our kids' lives shouldn't be something that's measured and really bargained for at a political table. But for the price of a vote, they'll sell our children. And I'm sorry, but maybe that's more how I feel, but I'm sure there's others that feel it that way. So we really need to work on developing a stronger advocacy group, and maybe even, I know I would like to, but I make sure the board does see an actual advocate chair, an advocate job that we have funding for to pay, and a national advocate who pulls everything together across the country. And we have a strategic plan based just on advocacy alone. It's such a huge part of what we do. Really, it's what got us here right now. After that, organizational strength, the last of the four, is we maintain our momentum and build sustainable capacity by continually investing in our members, staff, and board, as well as our policy systems and feedback. Often we learn from our mistakes, and as we build an effective team and we get more contractors in, we have to remember that the collateral that we have, that knowledge that we have, who've been those of us immersed in this world for 8 years, you know, some more before this organization started, is we have to remember that not everybody knows what we do, and we have to be able to share that information and that knowledge, and we have to increase and diversify revenue. We have to get funding. You know, as Petra mentioned earlier, we need to help find ways of getting funding, and that's going to be a big job for the board too in the next couple of years. So a lot of opportunities have come from all of those areas. And then there's one more thing I do believe. The other part too, that we're looking at creating the board in a more governance way. If you understand boards, we've been very operational. We've had to be. We've had to have hands-on because we were just developing, just creating policy and procedure. And that came from all the worker bees moving onto the board. And now the worker bees have developed the policies and all that we can start working off of and expand, but let that operational work, especially once we get our charitable status, we're going to get charitable, by the way, I know it in my heart. But move into an executive director and we have actual people whose job is to look after the meat and potatoes of this organization. We need to secure solid funding and fundraising so we can hire more staff nationally to handle day-to-day for the organization. A charitable status will help. And many of us who've been working behind the scenes to build are better advocates than board members. And we need to get the right people in the right places to capitalize on our strengths. Me, for example, I'm a way better advocate, frankly, but I surround myself with people I hope that can do stuff that I just don't feel confident in. So ultimately, we have our hands full. It's going to take a lot of effort moving forward. We need to help manage it. Again, I can't say enough about, I really, really like the work of Holly from Hummingboard that led our strategic planning and has been really, really generous with offering support for us going forward. So that is the Coles Notes version of our strat planning. Any questions? Throw it in there. I'm going to not be able to stay on the line very much longer, you guys. I got to walk down and get on a boat. So thank you very much. And I hope everything goes well to the end.
Thank you for that summary, Marie. It sounds like you guys had an amazing day for strategic planning, and I agree, Holly has been wonderful, and she's still working in our policies as well, isn't she?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So we will
she
have.
Is. She's actually got a bunch of them already built. I just have to meet with her again to start reviewing them. Tyler and I do. So she has done. She's the kind of woman you give her a little bit of work, and 2 days later she's phoning you back and go, "I've got a draft version made."
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
And she's very generous too with her fees. She cares for us deeply. So we are fortunate to have her do work for us. Thank you for that. And thanks for taking us along in Montreal. I was there a little while ago, and I feel like going back, seeing you there. Yeah. Thank you, Marie. Enjoy.
You betcha. Take care, everybody.
Yeah. Bye. Next, I want to give you an update about upcoming events. Just a few highlights. And if you have any upcoming events in your region, now would be in the time to put them in the chat. Maybe in the contact information, there might be other people online who are where you are or in the vicinity. And it's also information that we can grab and share. So what's coming up is a Star Vigil for Jordan on June 1 in Ottawa. Angela Voss, she's one of our moms in Ontario. And I don't think Angela is online today. I didn't see her name. But she's organizing a Star Vigil on Parliament Hill on the anniversary of her son's death. And Jordan really symbolizes so many. And we wanted to take this opportunity to draw attention to the ongoing crisis and be on Parliament Hill while the House is still in session. Now, while this was already being prepared, Pierre Poilievre came up with his attack on safe supply, on this motion to end safe supply. So a whole bunch of activities have taken place. And Leslie, do you want to maybe give a brief update of what's happening on May 31st and June 1 in Ottawa, because you're going?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for asking me, because I was going to just put my hand up. I'm going to Ottawa on Monday. I'll be there till Friday. I will meet with Elizabeth May, with Gord Johns. I have a private meeting with Jagmeet Singh. I have a private meeting with Carolyn Bennett and Minister Duclos. Is that all? And then I will have tickets, I hope, it seems like I will, for a question period where I'll hopefully hear some of this. It's a scary time. However, Poilievre and his gang have really put something out there to defund safe supply federally that has caused a lot of awareness. On the good side of it, a lot of awareness. It's a terrible, terrible motion. However, there isn't that much money that's going to be taken off the table if this passes, and hopefully it will not. Anyway, so the whole reason I'm going is to talk to all these folks about safe supply. I mean, simply put, I have a lot of things to say, and I will have some of the moms here with me in those rooms. And then the vigil, well, June 1st also is the, sorry to go on here, but the anniversary of the defeat of Bill 216 that Gord Johns put on the table last year as a private member's bill. So we're highlighting that. There'll be 2 press conferences around that. So I don't know how I'm going to survive this, but we will be there, and we will be loud and proud and give the facts and the evidence. So yeah, is that helpful? Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I'm so excited that you were able to get all these high-level meetings. This is really, and as you said, this entire debate has brought our issue to the forefront in a horrible kind of way. But let's make something good of it. And you know, you have the arguments to drive home why we need safe supply. Just a reminder again, maybe Tyler, pop it in the chat again, that that form I created that you can use to contact your MP. If you don't have a Conservative MP, contact your MP, but also contact any Conservative in your area. If you can get them to abstain from that vote, it will be a win for us. So this is a very, very important day. In the past, where safe supply programs were taken away, there was a pilot project in BC years back that was taken away, and people died as a result. Here in Alberta, we had the Narcotic Transition Service, and we have heard from physicians that they have had patients whose safe supply was taken away. They had patients die. So this is an incredibly harmful move by the opposition that just has to be stopped. And Corey kind of got booted out.
I just wanted to add one thing that I forgot.
Yeah.
I have written on behalf of Moms Stop the Harm 2 letters to Polyev asking for a meeting. And of course and I knew he wouldn't respond, or they wouldn't respond, and they have not. And I will be making that a point to media that we wanted to confer, we wanted to exchange ideas, and then we didn't hear. And I think this is going to be, anyway, that it's going to be a point that I will make to media. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, we are willing to speak. We are willing to speak to anyone who wants to speak with us in a respectful way. There's lots of unrespectful speaking going on social media. So keep a watch and speak to your politicians. I urge you, this counts, this matters. As a mom of a child on safe supply who's doing the best they have done in many, many years, this to me is deeply personal. And if I say it's life and death, I'm not exaggerating. Yeah. Corey, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have anything to add, you work in the safe supply area. You've done research in it.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I'm sorry. I'm just hitting the road, so I'm a bit on the spot. But I think this entire debate that's happening right now is an intentional distraction from our need to continue pushing for scale up of safe supply, and that we do not in fact actually have an accessible safe supply right now. And the conversations about Dilaudid and hydromorphone are intended to pull us away from what we actually need, which is to replace the entire unregulated drug supply with regulated, accessible, predictable drugs that people can get on demand. And until we actually get there, we're going to be caught in these debates with conservatives about whataboutisms and all kinds of dog whistling and sensationalizing about diversion. But that's intended to draw reaction from us and deviate us from what we're actually moving towards, which is full regulation and full access.
Yeah, thank you for that, Corey. And that is what we will continue to focus on: full access to safe supply. Just as an example, Danny, the son that I lost in 2014, Danny was using diverted OxyContin at the time, and we didn't even know he was using. His use did not become evident until he used the toxic street supply, and the toxic street supply is what he died from. And that is, use can be problematic, but if it's not deadly, there's always hope. There are always things we can do to help and support people. So thank you for that. So really, really important. The next thing that's going on right now in BC, Jessica, how do you say Jessica's last name correctly? Michalowski, I want to say. Pardon?
Michalowski.
Mikulovsky. Okay, Jessica Mikulovsky is just an amazing mom in BC who lost her beautiful son Aubrey. She ran around the Ministry of Health for 40 some days last year. She ran a marathon every day, and now she's running through BC. She started in Nelson. She's going up through the Okanagan. She's coming through the Lower Mainland. She's going to the island and ending in Victoria. So pay attention. If you are in BC, get in touch. You can contact us at info@ if you want to see where Jessica is at. And Tala, if you have a moment, you could also put the website on Aubrey's one, or if somebody here has a moment to pop that into the chat. And there's also a way to support her expenses through GoFundMe. She's doing an amazing job drawing attention to the crisis in smaller rural communities who are often across the country. People in rural community has just such a harder time, so much of a harder time accessing any sort of service. So she's drawing attention to that too. Next thing is International Overdose Awareness Day. Let us know what you're doing. Last year we had the biggest events, the most events across the country organized by the most people. If you are in the park with 3 friends, or you're organizing 500 people in the park like the Edmonton team did, let us know. It's all important, and it draws attention once again, and it gives us the time to jointly come together and remember. And then in October, we have Stimulus Conference in Ottawa. At that conference, we will also have a free evening event. So even if you're not planning to go to Stimulus and you're going to be in the Ottawa region, you can join us for the free evening event. And we will also have a rally on Parliament Hill with all the advocates who are at the conference. And in Quebec, they started an amazing thing. I don't know if you have access to a photo, Sylvie or Isabel, that you could pop in the chat. They've done these 10 by 10 banners where they wrote names on. So we are going to be sending out information to all groups in the country, all our Healing Hearts groups, and all other groups who want to participate, where we make banners to send to Ottawa and then carry those banners on Parliament Hill. Are there any questions about these events? I know lots of information.
I just added another event coming up, which I know you know about, Petra, the Issues of Substance Conference.
Oh, yeah.
The Center on Substance Use, November 20th to 22nd, is taking place in Vancouver. So I put forward a submission, and I know Petra and Marie also put forward one. So anyway, hopefully we'll be able to attend that.
Yeah, that'd be great. And Lorna, is do you want to say a word about your film that's going to be featured at Stimulus and hopefully at CCSA?
Yeah, so the film is, it's called Building Hope, Substance Use in the Trades. And it was a film that we finished at the end of July last year. I'll put the link in the chat. And it's featuring 4 men's stories and their stories of recovery.
Great. Yeah, it's so important that we know that those who are working at the that half of the victims that we have worked in trades. So this is an area that really needs to be addressed. So next, Tyler, if you can give us a brief update on Stronger Together, Holding Hope and Healing Heart groups.
Okay, so all right, so just make sure I got all my right screens here. So as was mentioned earlier, the SUAP funding, so we had initially had a 2-year funding from Health Canada through SUAP, which is the Substance Use Addiction Program through Health Canada. And we were able to get a 1-year extension. So we're very excited about that. That way we don't have to go into just maintenance mode. We can continue keeping the growing happening. So that was an additional $168,000 for this coming year. So yeah, so we're going to keep growing our Healing Hearts and Holding Hope support groups, as well as we're going to be adding a phone line this year. So we're working on the details for that. So then that just offering that additional level of connection when we know that, you know, there's just some extra trying times that come along with us all attaining lived experience. So that'll just be another point of connection to be able to connect with one another and just have that safe space to be able to share and that environment of understanding. Then we also we're very fortunate this year that we also got a grant from BC Interior Health to expand programming to include youth support. So very exciting and lots of really good things, just that extra level of awesomeness taking place in that area as well. And the Stronger Together program overall, so from coast to coast all across Canada, we have established 37 Healing Heart groups all across Canada, and we also have 3 virtual groups where you can connect in and still have that support if you don't have a local group in your region. And ironically, and they're not all necessarily in the same communities, but we also have 37 Holding Hope groups where you can, and then as well as 3 virtual groups. So they're not necessarily again in that same community, but again, an avenue for everyone to be able to connect. So as you know, I don't want to just assume some details. So Healing Hearts is for those who have lost a loved one who to substance use harms, that support for them. And then we have Holding Hope, which are for those who have a loved one who is struggling or is working on their recovery. So you can definitely keep up on all things Mom Stop the Harm by definitely going to our website, so momstoptheharm.com. I'll share all these links and all the links that we've shared in the chat window in a follow-up email to everyone as well. That way you can, you know, take care of it all and not have to madly try to take some notes right now. The other great areas to be able to keep up with everything that's going on as well is our Facebook page, our Twitter, Instagram. Please like, share, invite, follow on all the platforms to keep up with everything, because there's a lot of moving parts at any given time, but at the same time, a lot of really good engagement and learning that takes place on many multiple levels. Don't forget, we also have a YouTube channel. So as much as Petra had talked to it earlier today, that we are recording today, and we will be posting our AGM recording on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube, search Mom Stop the Harm, and then you can click subscribe, and then that way it's easy to find anytime. So you can find any recordings of events, our Connect sessions and such, meetings like today, like the AGM, all those kinds of really important things that you know, would be a good resource, will all be there. Again, we have our groups and online platforms are great ways to connect with one another. So we have our private Facebook groups and such for our members. We have all of our online platforms where you can always be communicating and get like, share, and invite. Share those resources, and definitely continue to keep your finger on what's happening. And again, I'll also include my email if for those who may not have it. Everyone should have it at this point in time, but you can always, any email that has a at momstoptheharm.com, definitely, you know, shoot off the message and we will get you connected in and answer any questions you may have. Oh, you're on mute, Petra.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tyler. And I want to thank our amazing staff in across the country and all the volunteers who make our groups happening. Without the many volunteers, there wouldn't be groups, and the staff teams in BC and across Canada are doing an amazing job supporting those volunteers and building that strength and that community. And you know, you've heard what Emily had to say earlier. She's just one of our many Holding Hope facilitators, and that really what we bring forward is our love and compassion. I was at the conference in Quebec. I had people use drugs coming up and say, do you have a group for us? We want to have a group with parents like you, so we can have parents who love us, and we've kind of have an idea that we'll be spreading some mom's love at the Stimulus conference. So thanks for that. Next, I'd like to hand it over to Antoinette, who's just going to give us a quick rundown on all the events through Healing Heart and Holding Hope. We have the Connect series where we share information outside of those who belong with those and outside of those who belong to the groups. So over to you, Antoinette.
Thanks, Petra. So yes, I'm just going to give a really brief kind of snapshot of some of the Holding Hope and Healing Hearts Connect sessions that we have. For those of you that don't know, anybody can attend a Connect session. They don't have to be a member of Mom Stop the Harm. They don't have to be a member of a Hearts or a Hope group. It's open to the general public. And so these events can be shared far and wide as a way to reach many people. I love Leslie. Sorry, I'm just watching Jordan's bird jump on your shoulder there. So, and the Connect sessions are funded, thankfully funded by the federal government SUAP grant. And so within some of the financial pieces, just to note that that's how the Connect sessions, whether it's a Heart or a Hope session is funded. So this was one of the Heart sessions. It was with Missy and Tara McGuire, who had written a book. They're always done by Zoom, so we can bring in everybody from all across Canada. And so that was one that took place in January of this year. And if you want to keep moving the slides, we also did some naloxone training with St. John's. They had a SUAP grant where they were able to offer the training, and then anybody that took the training was able to receive a naloxone kit. And so we were thankful to be able to partner with them. What was nice, it was the nasal naloxone, and in different places across Canada, I know it's quite pricey and hard to get. So we were able to provide that through a grant that they had gotten from SUAP as well. Art with Anna was one of the, it was just a different way to be able to help people process strong emotions, whether that's a Heart or a Hope session. And one of our Hearts facilitators in Toronto, Mary, had shared with me about somebody that she knows that does art journaling. So thanks, Petra. These are some of the amazing art journaling examples that happened during the session that we were able to share with people's permission. And all of the feedback it was such a beautiful, peaceful way just to express and to move. And I loved when I met with Anna, she said, if you can draw a stick person, you can do this, because I know I am not an artistic person whatsoever. And so it was very inspiring just to be able to create such beauty and a way to move such strong emotions. So Petra did one of the Connect sessions on lessons learned from losing Danny. And so that one is also taped and recorded on the Mom Stop the Harm YouTube channel, just to be able to share all of those lessons and learnings that have taken place for Petra. One of the Hope Connect sessions was with Dr. Ken Carpenter, who's the director of training in New York City for the Center for Motivation for Change. Their group is really, I find, very much in line with our philosophies around compassion and kindness with evidence-based. And so he did a session with us on debunking terms like enabling boundaries and codependency, because they've been used so out of context. So he was able to come and shed some light and bring some information. We had a session with Benjamin Perrin, who is a law professor in BC. His presentation was from crime and punishment to compassion and evidence-based. He did a session with us around that, answered a lot of questions, had a lot of factual information that he shared with us. That again is also on our YouTube channel. He's looking at he's doing another book in the fall, so he will be connecting with us and advocates across Canada to help with his next book, which is called Indictment, the Canadian criminal justice on trial. So really debunking a lot of the government lenses that we've heard about today. So I think it'll be very timely. Stronger Together BC did some events as well in the past year and some conferences, and the thanks goes to the funding through the BC government. They did a grief conference where they had amazing speakers. They did it over a few days. Just were able to really bring in some heartfelt healing for people and some tangible resources to be able to utilize. Dr. Alan Wolfoot was one of the key speakers present there. And I know that they're talking about, and I don't want to talk to their what they're doing, but they're talking about having him doing another session again coming up in I can't remember if it was October, but I think it was November. So that'll be upcoming. And Holding Hope Conference, there was a Holding Hope Conference again with some amazing speakers. Really, you know, I think what happened is after the grief conference, we do joint meetings, and that the Holding Hope facilitators in BC were able to get, again, some funding to support a Holding Hope conference, bringing in some, again, amazing speakers to be able to, you know, for those that still have a loved one struggling, to be able to talk about various issues around how to support. And it was really for supporting those families and individuals that have loved ones that they're supporting. So, and the other is, again, thanks to the funding in BC, they had Vicki Reynolds come in and do a session on advocating for change. And Vicki's a very powerful speaker. If any, I'm sure many of you know her. And next one. And in January, Johan Harry did a conference with us as well. And just again, talking to the policies and looking at not only the policies, but the human compassion and how do we approach the issue. And he was very good at answering questions and engaging with all of us. We do have, just one thing, we do have one that got postponed and will be coming up, and we're looking at planning, which is language and stigma and why does it matter. So we'll be continuing to do some connect sessions over the next year. So thank you.
Thank you for that amazing summary, Antoinette. And it's great to see what our programs are able to put together and how we build strength and educate people and share what we do with the wider audience, which is so important. Look forward to upcoming events from Stronger Together Connect, as well as any conferences at Stronger Together BC, any speakers or conferences from that team. Thanks for that presentation, Antoinette. So the exciting part, we have a t-shirt draw. I'm going to finish everything and then we'll go back to the votes. So Tyler, from the people in attendance, can we draw 3 names and then they have to get in touch with Antoinette and confirm what size they need? We have all kinds of sizes, from tiny to not so tiny. So tiny, I should have put that picture on. I bought a tiny t-shirt for my dog and had her wear it at an event because I had her on the leash and I couldn't hold a banner.
Awesome. So I have drawn 3 names of people that are in attendance, and we have Susan Kawa, Pam Bush, and Shauna Scott are our 3 t-shirt winners.
Yeah, so you can email info or Antoinette can put her email in the chat and you can email and confirm. We have purple and black and all kinds of sizes. Thanks for that. Now, before we do closing remarks and adjournment, I'm going to stop sharing so we can see each other better. And have you been able to tabulate the numbers, Tyler?
Yes, so we do have a bit of a challenge that's come through, in that there was no votes placed in regards to accepting our financial report. So I'm not sure if that was a glitch on our form or which happened. So we'll have to address that. But I do have the totals for everything else.
Let me see. Let me see. I'm just going to look at my end how it looks like. Oh, wrong one.
Could I just say something while you're looking, Petra? I'll just use the moment. I just want to go back to the to explain, and I think it was explained a little bit at the beginning, but in BC, we do get a lot of funding because it's BC, but the funding is very specific to supporting families. So what we did with our with all our conferences and our speakers and our webinars was kind of, if they weren't directly, didn't look directly like supporting families, we kind of massaged the speakers to fit with what our funding is. And we made sure those speakers were nationwide rather than just BC. So that was a way of sharing, if I can even say it, our good fortune in terms of BC, in terms of funding to share it with everybody. So that's all. Just wanted to explain that.
Okay, I have the numbers here in a different screen. Thank you for that, Leslie. That's a good addition, because of course all the speakers, all those talks we organize are under the support banner. For the motion to approve the agenda, we had 47 responses. 95.7 of those, Charlene can do the math, were yes, and the remainder abstained. For the motion to accept the results of the AGM vote electing board members, despite missing the motion from the members in attendance, we had 45 responses with 88.9 yes and 11.1 abstain. The motion to approve the 2022 AGM minutes as presented had 45 responses, 91.1% yes, 88.9% abstained. The motion to approve 2022-23 unaudited financial statement as presented had 45 responses, 93.3% yes, the remainder abstained. The motion to appoint Auditor Baker Tilly for financial audit had 44 responses, 88.6 yes, we had 1 no, and 9.1% abstained. And the motion to approve the slate of board candidates had 44 responses with 95.5% yes and 4.5% abstain. And I actually can repeat that with the numbers I see here. So motion to approve the agenda, 45 yes, 2 abstained. Motion to accept the results of the AGM vote for the board members, 40 yes, 5 abstained. Motion to approve the minutes as presented, 41 yes, 4 abstained. Motion to approve unaudited financial statements, 42 yes, 3 abstained. Motion to appoint Baker Tilly, 3 yes, 1 no, 4 abstained. Motion to approve slate of candidates, 42 yes and 2 abstained. That is a total of our votes. I will now close the voting form for responses, and Charlene can vote, note those numbers for the minutes. All right, how are we doing? We are tad over. But the only thing we have left is closing remarks by Marie, which she has pre-recorded, after which I will adjourn the meeting. If any of you, I know we're a little over, if any of you have to head out, I want to thank you very much for attending. Our next AGM will again be by Zoom, but probably in the fall of September, October or so of 2024, to allow time for the financial statements to be prepared after our new year end. So Tyler, let's see what Marie has to say.
Hey everybody, hi, Marie here. I've had to pre-record this part of it because literally at this hour I'm getting on a boat. In this moment I'm getting on a boat in Montreal for a family event. But I didn't want to miss an opportunity to have a few words at the end of all this. As the incoming chair, I hope the vote went through. I guess I'll find out. We're again at the close of another AGM. I remember where it all began in a hotel room in Kelowna, BC. There was a dozen-ish of us deciding on what the organization would be called. terrified of more children dying, injured, but really, really driven that we needed to do something. And under the guidance of 3 amazing women who brought us to this place even today. That's why we're here. We have grown, and sadly we have, because that growth has come at the cost of the thousands of lives of our kids, more than we ever thought would happen. And you know, the suffering of the parents that live with the fear that most of us here know all too well. And through that pain, we've tried to do what we can to fill the gaps. You know, we have Healing Hearts and Holding Hope sessions across Canada, and we need more. We need more volunteers. Contact Tyla if you can help. We have the ears of some of the country's highest officials, and again, high, no pun intended, and the wisest experts, both academically and for people with lived experience, that a degree in lived experience. We have governments like that of BC willing to support that team and the rest of us, and that how greatness can come from wise and generous leadership. We've also had growing pains. We're trying to support all the willingness from our volunteers and sort through it. You know, we're volunteers too. It can be a challenge, and it has been a challenge. There's a lot going on, and we want and need more eyes to manage all of this going forward. More eyes and more hands on deck. The optics of our organization has also become a new challenge. We are watched from leadership at all levels. We are asked for guidance, driven and quoted more often than I can remember, from local to international stages. The next couple of years will be critical in our path forward as we collect the tragic fallout of drug policies gone wrong. We also educate, and our alliances increase from people all over the world who demand a better outcome. In this next year, we hope to secure our charitable status, a long and expensive and arduous process. Thank you, Petra, for all the work you've done, that can open doors to funding that will help us to hire leadership at the national level and allow us to grow programming and that supports more advocacy. And it will take the collective voices that we have and raise them up louder than ever before. And you know, our grassroots, they embedded us, they pushed us into the ground, and now the tree that represents our organization, that's what we're becoming. And that tree represents us, but we couldn't have done it without the hard work of the last many years. Our hope is sooner than later to have more national leaders and a board based on governance, less operational, and to have added policies and practices in place that no matter where we are in the country, we're still working from the same place and the same hearts. It will be a challenge, but every tiny step along this path has been one, just different ones. Lastly, I'd like to say that one key driving factor has been the relentless need to save lives. That's why we're here. We are an injured crew, many of us traumatized from the past and trying to navigate a world where our children seem to be expendable. And with that, we can't forget about ourselves, about you, about me, about you, about every person around you, about the pain that drives us and the inevitable emotional exhaustion that this work delivers. You know, it brings me to a story where about the weight of the work that we do and the need for looking after ourselves too. It was a board member from Kindersley, Saskatchewan. I hope Willie's listening. Her name's Willie McCorston, an amazing woman. And she recently said to a bunch of us on the board, she goes, you know, living in Kindersley, I get the pleasure of sitting up my backyard every spring and every fall and watching the geese fly in and watching them, their migration in and out. And she said, it just reminded me so much of what we do. The lead goose is pushing and flying and pulling, and the flow of the energy going to the back makes the load a little bit lighter for the people behind us. But at some point, the goose in the front gets too tired and needs to fall to the back and let somebody with more energy move to the front. That's the nature of what we do. We can't forget how exhausting this work is and how much you need to look after yourselves through all of it. And the analogy, I just loved it because it's exactly where we're at. So never feel bad because you need to take a step back and look after yourself, because it's that energy that got you to the place to want to help in the first place that you need to rebuild so you can come back stronger and be the lead goose again. good, bad, or otherwise, we are the biggest and best resource we have, the volunteers and the people that work for our organization. So in closing, thank you to everyone for taking the time to be part of the AGM. And again, thank you, Petra, Leslie, and Lorna, for your leadership. We wouldn't be here if not for you. Much respect from me and from everybody, and take care, and until next year. Bye.
Thank you to Marie for this amazing closing address. And one thing I must say, over the years that we have worked on Mom Stop the Harm, all of us have also grown in our technology skills. I have to admire that. You should have been on our initial phone calls, like our group phone calls, where we tried to patch each other in and didn't quite know how. So we continue to grow, we continue to learn. There was one other question, Katie, from you. You had a question? Yeah, please go ahead.
I have a clarification to make. Earlier, Petra, you were suggesting that Mom Stop the Harm was speaking at Stimulus, I think. And I just wanted to clarify, no one has been chosen to speak yet for Stimulus. Like, I'm on various committees with them, and so it sounded, I think that you must have put in an abstract and would have Emily speak. Okay, I think that's what you meant.
Sorry, I wasn't specific, Katie. We have a side event. Mom Stop the Harm is going to be organizing a side event. And
Okay.
if you organize a side event, you don't put an abstract in for us. It's our event. And what we like about doing a side event is, because it's not part of the conference, people don't have to pay the conference fee to come. We want the event to be open to families and individuals, to government people, to anybody in the Gatineau and Ottawa region, or that part of Ontario, or anybody who happens to be in Ottawa at the time. So if the conference fee scares you, but you can make it to Ottawa, you can come to our event, you can come to the protest. So sorry, Katie, I didn't clarify that. Yeah.
No, that makes more sense. I was just like, oh, I didn't think they announced who had
No,
won
they're
yet.
not.
And so I was like, oh, because I know a few organizations, like my organization, put in an abstract. So I was like, oh, maybe they decided. So I was confused about that. That makes more sense. And I think it, like you suggested, it makes more folks able to attend as well as having it as a side
event.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, no, but good question, Katie. Thanks for clarifying that. It's kind of, for those of you who don't go to conference all the time, conferences are incredibly expensive to organize, and that's why there are these registration fees and such. But are there any other questions?
Oh, just Petra, you just let us know when there's a summary of what that side event is. I was listening, but it kind of skipped by me. So
yeah, we'll be starting to be. And our last meeting, we nailed down the title and the last speaker. So now we are ready to share the information for it. So yeah, it's going to revolve around love. Yeah, love and hope and harm reduction is kind of, Emily's presentation today was really a teaser for what's happening at Stimulus, because that's what it's going to focus around. And Sylvie is part of our organizing team, and she's one of our fundraiser on the team, and she has her hand up.
Yes, just want to mention that we are fundraising now. We have a Facebook page with an online auction. We have lots of people who gave really, really nice pieces. And it's still time if you like to create. It's still time to donate if you wish. And then the auction will be open June 19 for 1 week. The comment will be open, and then you can bid on the comment space.
Yeah, and be keeping it really simple. Like the creators of the item will then, the donation goes to Mom Stop the Harm, and the creators will ship out the item. And if there are any glitches, Mom Stop the Harm is good for any, issues with shipping and such. So thank you for that. There'll be more information forthcoming. I wish you all a wonderful Saturday. Anybody in Alberta, if you haven't done it yet, go out and vote. Monday is our election. The rest of the country, please sit on fingers crossed. It is really sad that the lives of our loved ones are politicized, whereas approaches to the drug poisoning crisis should be based on what the evidence tells us and what our heart tells us, you know, that we should do everything in our power to keep the people we love well and with us. So thank you for sharing your Saturday. Thank you for the amazing comments. And I'm no longer your board chair. But as Leslie and Lorna, the three of us will always be advocates. I think advocacy is in your blood. It kind of stays with you no matter what your role is. Thank you, and have a lovely Saturday, everybody. And thank you for all you do. Let's keep it going.